The new year is fast approaching, and often it's a time of making New Year's resolutions to make the coming year even better than the one that's ending. But making changes that stick over the long term means changing our habits. So in this video, I'm going to take you through 25 simple habits that can change your life in the new year. And by the way, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by all these. Not all of these habits are going to resonate with you, and that's okay. Pick out the ones that you feel drawn to, try one out, see how it goes, and then work on the next one. So the first one is a bit of a mindset shift habit type thing, and that is think small. And I know the common consensus is usually to think big, but actually thinking small is going to help you to stop feeling overwhelmed. It's all about breaking things down into small steps and working towards things gradually. If you think too much about the big picture, you might not even work towards a goal because it just feels too much. So if there are things that you want to get done in the new year, break them down into smaller steps and work on those small steps one at a time. If you want a book that will take you through this process, one of the best books I've ever read, and I don't say that lightly, is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I will put a link to that book in the description. Honestly, that changed my view of working towards goals because I used to be an all or nothing person, wanting to get it all done at once, and that book really helped me to stop and think, okay, you can relax a bit, take one thing at a time, it's okay. Habit number 2 is probably a bit of a cliche, but it is focus on the journey, not so much the destination. And again, this ties in with the premise or the fundamental principles that James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. What we tend to do is focus too much on the overall goal or destination, when what we need to do is focus on those small steps, i.e. the journey that will get us there. So for example, if I want to lift heavier and heavier weights, rather than focusing on a particular weight, what I need to do is make sure that I'm putting all of those steps into place each week when I train. So doing the sessions that my coach sends to me, eating a balanced diet to help with my lifting. If I don't do those things, I'm less likely to get to my destination. So focusing on the journey and all of the steps involved in it is more likely to help you get there. Number 3 is one goal at a time. If you try to do too many things at once, you're probably not going to be doing any of those things to the standards that you really want to, and it's easy to get sidetracked if you're doing too much at once. So focus on one thing at a time, and then you can put all your effort into that and then move on to the next one. The next habit is to eat a balanced diet, and I know this is a very common thing that people talk about, but it really is true. And a balanced diet doesn't mean never eating chocolate or never eating crisps or chips. It's all about having things in moderation, which I know we've all heard of that, but I think sometimes we think we need to take things to the extreme. I find that I feel a lot better when I feed my body nutritious foods. But equally, if there is something that is a little bit more naughty that I wouldn't normally eat, I don't want to deprive myself of that, because actually that helps me to feel good as well. The next habit is to journal. I journal every single day. Sometimes it might be just a few lines. Others I can barely fit what I want to write on the page. It might be about just writing about things I've done that day, or it might be things that are going on in my life and I'm writing down how I feel about them and just generally reflecting on them. I've found that journaling every day just helps to get things out of my head. I'm very much an overthinker. It's all going on up here, and even though getting it down on paper doesn't remove it from my head entirely, it's just a way of easing that pressure and helps me to look at it from a more outside perspective rather than it being stuck around here and not being able to make sense of it. My next habit is to read/listen to audiobooks, which I know people might have feelings about, or listen to podcasts. Fiction books are a great way to escape from the stresses of everyday life. I don't read or listen to any fiction now. I do prefer to listen to kind of real life things, and those things really help me to reflect and apply them to my own situation, and that's what I really enjoy doing. So either way, whatever you enjoy reading or listening to on audio, you're going to get something useful out of it. The next habit is to keep a personal to-do list. So we can all make to-do lists about tasks that we need to get done, like cleaning, tidying, doing the food shopping, but do we ever make personal to-do lists like reading or going out for a walk or relaxing? It's not often that we schedule in personal care time, and it's not to say that we need to lose the spontaneity of it, but sometimes I think personal care gets pushed way down our list of priorities. Everything else, the life stuff, gets done, but the things that we do purely for ourselves are either non-existent or they're a very tiny portion of our week. So if you know you've got a busy week ahead, why not have a look in your diary or your calendar, whatever you use, and pinpoint sometimes in the week where you can do a bit of personal care, and this will look different for everybody. Do what feels right for you, but if you're finding it hard to incorporate it into your life, make an effort to schedule it in. The next habit is to create visual cues. And what I mean by this is if you are someone who forgets to do things, create a visual cue that will remind you. So for example, I keep my journal on a shelf on my coffee table so that every time I sit down, I can see it. And that reminds me to make sure I write in my journal every day. It might be that you want to get better at taking vitamins or supplements, in which case put them on a counter somewhere that you will walk past every day to remind you to take them. The problem is when things are out of sight, often they're out of mind. So putting it somewhere that you're going to walk past and actually see it is a great reminder to yourself. The next habit is to get your body moving regularly. And again, the exercise that we do or the way that we get our body moving is going to be different for everybody in terms of what they enjoy. I enjoy weightlifting. The opposite might be true for you. You might absolutely hate weightlifting and love cardio. So do that. It's not only good for us physically, but looking after our physical health is also a good way of looking after our mental health. The next habit is to write a to-do list the night before. So sitting down at the end of the day and thinking about what you need to do the next day. When you take the time to write that list the night before, you'll be able to anticipate any problems that might come up during the day and how you're going to work around them. The next habit is to be more intentional with how you spend your time. One of the biggest things for me is social media. If I'm not more intentional about my time on social media, it can quickly run away from me and I can spend far too much time on there rather than doing things that are actually helpful. And before you know it, the day is done and you feel really demotivated because you've not got done half the things you wanted to do. So if you are spending a bit too much time on social media, make an agreement with yourself of how much time you're going to spend on it each day and if that's going to be at a particular time. The next habit is to have a morning routine. And no, I don't mean get up at 5 a.m, meditate, write some journaling notes. Although if that works for you, fine. But I see a lot of videos about 5 a.m. being the magical time to get up and doing all of these different things. My morning routine used to be getting up early, weight training before I went to work. Nowadays, I have to do it at the end of the day. So now my morning routine is to get up, make a fuss of Tala, make my breakfast, and then sit on the sofa and read a book while she snoozes beside me. What a lovely morning routine. So think about what you want from a morning routine. Are there certain things that you would like to get done before the day properly gets started? Often what it means doing, especially if it's a new routine, is consciously planning out what you want to do, implementing that routine and giving it time to embed itself. It might feel a bit clunky to start with, but if you give it time to embed, soon it'll become part of your day and you won't even think about it. The next habit is to do something you love. Now, I don't necessarily mean jack in your career and go and do something you love for work, although some people might want to do that. But what I mean is have a think about hobbies or interests, things that you enjoy doing, and if you're not doing them, do that thing. Start doing it again or take up something new if you want to try something else. Our lives are full enough with stuff that we have to do. We don't make enough time for the things that we want to do. And if you currently don't have something in your life that you love to do, have a think about something that you fancy trying and give it a go. The next habit is being consistent. Often when we try new things or we're trying to build new habits, we don't give them long enough to be embedded. We don't give them a good go. What we need in these situations is patience and consistency. If you do them ad hoc and don't do them on a regular basis, they're less likely to be embedded and you might give up on them altogether. So say for example, if you're wanting to get into a habit of going for a run in the morning, don't feel that you have to go out running every single morning of the week. Maybe start out once or twice a week, but make sure you do those 2 days consistently. And then once those feel less of a conscious effort, once they feel more embedded into your routine, build them up if you want to. But consistency is the key that's going to get you where you want to go. The next habit is to expand your comfort zone. And this is something that I'm going to be working on in the new year. This is not easy because expanding our comfort zone usually means stepping towards the things we fear and being able to do those things despite feeling the fear. But actually, I've never done something I'm fearful of and not grown from it. Experiencing fear and moving through it is probably the place where you're more likely to grow as a person. So maybe think about skills that you want to build or maybe situations that you're a bit fearful of and maybe start testing out the waters and see if you can start doing those things. The next habit is to reframe failure. Failure is often seen as the end. It's often seen as something to be really ashamed of. But how about if you start reframing failure as an opportunity to learn and grow? What went well about the situation? What didn't go so well? What can you do differently next time? Those questions are far more helpful for you to ask yourself because telling yourself you've failed is more likely to lead you to just give up and not trying again. The next habit is to choose the sort of person you want to be. And again, this is something that I'm going to be working on in the new year. What sort of person do I want to be to other people? Do I want to be approachable and kind and and funny and generous. If I want to be those things, then I need to start doing things to show that to others and to show it to myself. This is something else that James Clear talks about in his book Atomic Habits. It's to choose the identity that you want for yourself and start to act like you are that person. It's no good thinking about it and just writing it down and then wishing you were. You've got to take steps, you've got to take actions to actually be that person. The next habit is to be with people who lift you up in life. I'm sure we've all been around people who are quite negative and they really drain our energy. And maybe those people used to be people that we enjoyed being with, but maybe we've changed or they've changed and we're no longer compatible. So think about people who share your same sense of values, who share your same interests, who are passionate about similar things. And this isn't to say we need to live in echo chambers and just be around the people who are exactly like us, but certainly if we're around people who lift us up and encourage us and who share our passions, that's going to be beneficial for our well-being, and it's going to help motivate us during the times where we might be finding things challenging. The next habit is to spend more time in real life. And what I mean essentially by this is get off the internet, get off social media, be in your current reality. The problem with social media is that we hear a lot about what's going on in the world and it is really awful, but often there's a lot of things we hear about that we can't do anything about. We don't have control over them and we can feel helpless and frustrated and really upset by that. But don't forget to reconnect back in with your reality, with your little corner or bubble of the world that you're in, because that's the only place that you can be. The next habit is to stop putting stuff off, also known as procrastinating, which I've absolutely never done in my life. Procrastinating often comes from a place of fear, for me anyway. I fear doing something for fear of getting it wrong, embarrassing myself in some way, of not being good enough, so I just put it off until the very last minute and then I have to do it. And of course, the worst case scenario that I imagined never happens. So rather than putting stuff off and delaying the inevitable and allowing that fear and anxiety to build up, do the thing that you're fearful of, because more than likely it won't turn out as bad as you think it will. The next habit is to celebrate your wins. We're so good at focusing on the negative and the things that we get wrong. We very rarely take the time to celebrate and just drink in what we achieve, all the good things that we do. It could be that you went out on that run despite feeling really demotivated to do it on a particular day, or it could be that you decluttered a bit of the house that you've been putting off for ages and finally you've managed to do it, or at least make a start on it. Don't discount those little wins, because taking those into account is what's going to motivate you to keep moving forward. Whereas if we only focus on the big things and we put ourselves down for not doing more, rather than appreciating that we've done something, we run the risk of losing that motivation and giving up on these things altogether. The next habit is to take time out to get some perspective. As humans, we're all very good at being on a treadmill of doing. We just try to get as much done as we can, and often we keep pushing through and we end up near to burnout. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or a bit kind of caught up with things, just take a few minutes out to stop doing whatever it is that you're doing and just give yourself time to reevaluate. This links in with the next habit, which is take time to be still. Again, we don't do this often enough. We just get into a cycle of busy, busy, busy. We don't give our bodies and minds time to come down from all of that adrenaline. One of my favorite ways to be still is being out in nature. And sometimes this might mean literally standing still, but often it's just wandering through the trees and allowing my mind to be still, allowing my mind to take in all of this beauty, shift my mind away from the busyness of work, just allow myself to be. And nature might not be the place that you enjoy doing that, so find somewhere or something that does help you to do that. The next habit is to take an inventory of your possessions. I wouldn't be a true minimalist if I didn't mention decluttering somewhere on this list. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with your physical space, with the possessions in your space, go through each room and make a note of everything in those spaces. Then have a look through the list and think about, well, do I really need all of these things? Are they serving a purpose for me, or are some of these things sitting around not getting good use made of them? And I think this is something that you can do regularly throughout the year, making sure they're still serving you, they're adding something positive to your life, or whether it's time to let them go. And the next habit is to take an inventory of how you spend your time. Are your days filled to brimming with work, mundane tasks like cleaning and tidying, and not so much filled with things that you genuinely love to do? They help you unwind and de-stress. Who do you spend your time with? Is it with people who lift you up, or is it with people who maybe drag you down a bit? Having a think about how you spend your time and whether you're spending it in ways that are actually fulfilling you is a good way to evaluate where you are in life at the moment. We all change and evolve as we get older, so some of the things that we're doing and some of the people we're spending time time with, maybe they don't fit into who we are now, and that's okay. As we change and evolve, we may find that our life around us needs to do the same. And if you'd like to find out some of the things that I will be investing my time in the new year, then check out the video that's on the screen. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.